देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैः स्तुष्टुवागुंसत्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
Ayam. Last Thursday, we cursorily go over those 4 Mahavakyas: Prgnaanam Brahman, Ayam Aatma Brahman, which is from this Upanishad, Twam and Aham Brahmaasmi. Understanding the very first Mahavakya, Prgnaanam Brahman, Prgnaanam Brahma. The knowledge itself, having experience. And this is not the knowledge that we read of scriptures, or we even study from somebody. It is the awareness, internal awareness that you develop, understanding what reality is. And once again, reality is beyond time, beyond space, that never dies. One has to contemplate a lot. What does really Prgnaanam means? And so please, at least remember that what we remember it to be, the knowledge or the spiritual knowledge, is not Prgnaanam. It is not similar, but the clarity that will come from within, that you may not even feel like sharing with anybody, or more than sharing, more than getting attested. What I mean by attested, getting approval from somebody and sharing with somebody, some other spiritual seekers, and asking them, is this true? A stage will reach and you will be so overjoyed by just simply enjoying the knowledge, the awareness, or the knowing, as lot spiritual master call it. It's not knowledge, but knowing. Knowing beyond time, beyond space. And as Prgnaanam approaches or unfolds to us, nothing in the world matters. no fear bothers us, and definitely not the fear of dying, fear of death, because that is when the clarity develops. And mind you, clarity is not to be learned, it's realized, meaning the clarity you already have, but which has been under vikshepa, under covered avrana at the various scriptures. That's what we have learned. We'll talk about it. Now, today we'll be dealing with the third sloka. Let us understand
जागरितस्थानो बहिष्प्रज्ञः सप्ताङ्गजेकोनविंशतिमुखस्थूलभुग्वैश्वानरः प्रथमः पादः.
understanding the meaning of it. Jagrita sthana, one whose field is waking state. I will explain in a minute, so just bear with me. Bahishpragna, who is conscious of external, Bahis, external, Pragna, the knowledge. And here this Pragna and Prgnaanam Brahman, that Pragna is different, understand, the same word, and we'll talk about it. Who is conscious of external, Sapta Anga, Sapta 7, Anga means limbs, Ekon Bimsati, 19, Mukha, mouth, Stula, Bhuka, experiencer, Stula, gross, physical, Vaisvanara, the experiencer, Pratama, first, Padaha, quarter. Now, let us go to the understanding first word Jagruta Sthiti. Now what we call Jagruta and what the scripture refers Jagruta, there are differences. Meaning, Jagruta literally means awake. Of course, we are awake because our eyes are open, our ears can hear it, and all the five senses with which we perceive the outside world. So understand the word Jagruta needs to be understood in two folds. When we say we are Jagruta at the grosser level, gross means do not take it as a gross, but at physical level, we see, we perceive, we cognize the outside world. And every time you cognize the outside world, one needs to remind oneself that yes, it is these two eyes which they are seeing. Eyes are the instrument of seeing. The optical signals, chemical signal goes to the optical level, and optical nerves take this electromagnetic signal, goes through the neurons and what we call mind, that interprets and gives us the knowledge that this is what you are seeing it. What we call awake, but at the same time understand, even though our eyes are open and we may have vision 20/20, but we do not see everything. And the reason we don't see everything, because our mind, our memory, our chitta filters a lot. And all the information available, we don't see it. We see it, but we don't see it. We hear it, but we don't hear it. So it filters out certain things. This is worth understanding the sloka. Otherwise, the translation-wise, it doesn't take you too deep into it unless and until we contemplate. So first understand, here in this say, that we perceive the outside world with 7 limbs and 19 mukha, mouth. On the surface, if you translate, you may wonder, 7 limbs and 19 mouth? What an absurd statement. But mind you, this detailed explanation and the experience that those great masters had, this was where the world science was not available. And it's not that they were wrong, mind you, we cannot understand them. That is the point. So what is this at that time even? What they could see, we could not see. Whereby what I meant is, when they are into the deeper state of meditation, they start understanding that the outside of us, what we think it to be reality, because that's what we see. What do we see with our eyes? That we think it to be real. We think it, mind you, we, ignorant people, or educated ignorant people. That is what we feel, that's what we see, that to be reality. We're trying to perceive the outside world. And that we are seeing with the 2 eyes, with our 2 ears. We taste it, we smell it, and we touch it. So with these, our experience of the outside world, we accumulate. So there's 5 senses, 5 cognitive instruments. But then he's talking about 7 limbs. The 7th limb, even if you have these 5 senses, and your mind did not have any cognitive information, and the mind did not analyze it and stored it into the memory. And the memory, in its deeper sense, collects all this memory, analyzes it, and it becomes a stage called intelligence. So we understand whatever we see with our eye, it goes through the mind, and intellect is a faculty of mind. So mana and jnana, intellect. So these five senses, mind and intellect, these seven limbs with which we are receiving the outside world in us, and we're trying to understand what we normally call that I'm awake. I know the world. But reason I was saying that we are awake, but we are not awake, because even then, what you see, and when I see, I'm including all the five senses. When you understand with all the five senses, with mind and intellect, seven, so I will say with seven element, when we understand the outside reality. But that outside reality is not reality. Why? Because we have studied reality is one which is eternal, which is beyond time, beyond space. And one of the most near to us is our own body. We feel it, yes. I could see it. I could see myself in mirror. This is me. But you know, this is me ceases to exist as soon as we breathe our last. At that time, you don't say it's me because you are not there. So the nearest one, and which is easily understandable, but our understanding is not Prgnaanam, because it's not eternal. And the eternal cannot be realized by the seven senses or the seven limbs. Saptanga, sapta, anga, seven limbs. And if you want to still further understand the great Rishi, the author, the saint, is telling us that this external information is coming to us through 19 mouths. We know that, hey, we have one mouth. What he's talking about? He must be crazy. Or this one does not make any sense. What is 19? But it's not just five anga, five perceptive organs. And it's not that the seven anga, seven limbs with which we see, but we collect the experience from this 19 mouths. So what are those 19 mouths? And mind you, dear friend, simply do not just translate this or read the translation and you think we studied this. As we will go further and further, sloka number 7, in order to understand this, the Turiya state, the fourth state. On the surface, we'll understand that we understand. But to experience this, to understand the reality, or to realize the reality, quite a bit of contemplation is needed. Quite a depth of silence needs to be experienced. And that's the reason we have been recommended to come half an hour early and just listen to Om. And as the Om fades away, which is intentional, it leads us to that subtle vibration. And that subtle vibration takes us to beyond the perceptive mind, beyond the mind, mindless mind, beyond the 7 limbs, and beyond the 19 mouths. Please understand the time that we spend in silence is so much needed. We can do only that. We cannot do anything more. The world liberation, nirvana, moksha, all those intellectual words. And we can say, oh, I studied Mandukya, I memorized Mandukya. That does not mean much. The word Prgnaanam Brahman. Pragna. So now 19 mouths. First we know that the 5 senses, cognitive senses like eye, ear, nose, tongue, and skin. This with which we get the information. We also gather the information. This is called Gnana Yoga. Gnanendriya. Gnana, Indriya. Indriya limbs. Then we have 5 karmendriyas. So understand karmendriya, with which we do the action. Karma, indriya, karmendriya. So those 5 karmendriyas makes us 10. And even though we have the 5 senses, even though we have the 5 indriyas, 5 karmendriyas, we still cannot have it. The additional 5, which are 5 prana, apana, samana, vyana, and udana. Those are such a fantastic circuits, different mouths that we have. So the subtle knowledge cannot be had just with 5 karmendriyas and 5 gnanendriyas. We have been learning about the experience of prana and apana. When we have relaxed our body fully and we are so still, not rigid, understand, no movement at all. At that time, and when we go introvert, we could feel the sensation of prana and apana. So this prana, apana, samana, udana, Vyana and Udana, the 5 Vayus. Those are also the mouth, Mukha. So we have 5 Gnanendriyas, 5 Gnanendriyas, perceptive organs, 5 Karmendriyas, the organs with which we do the actions. And this 5 prana. So that adds up to 15. And even though we have all these 15, still something is lacking. And that is understand every word. Manaha buddhi ahankara chitta. Mana, mind, buddhi, intellect, ahankara, ego, and chitta, the supplied dimension of understanding the movement of existence, chitta. So mano, buddhi, ahankara, chitta. And that is going back to Adi Sankaracharya Shivoham. So this 19 mouths with which we are attempting to understand the reality. But this is with which we could feel the Jagruta Sthiti, Jagruta Sthana. Sthana, you can even call it something like a stage on which you are performing all your activities. And you can only perform on the stage of Jagruta Sthiti. And the actor, per se, is called Vaisvanara. That fire, that energy, Vaisvanara. So the third sloka talks about that is Jagruta Sthiti. And in order to reach to understanding of Om, the reality, every one of those 7 saptanga, 7 limbs, and 19 mouths need to be contemplated, and contemplated. And what is this contemplation? We have been learning that to be what Patanjali Yoga Sutra in the 3rd chapter, the 1st sloka says, Dharanam. What is dharana, and why we have been emphasized that at least spend 10 minutes in silence. We often say we don't have time. Yes. At that stage when we don't have time, this will remain as scriptural knowledge and not Prgnaanam. This kind of scriptures cannot be learned with translation, cannot be learned with discourses. The only way and only way and only way is begin with dharana. And the dharana stage is reached with various technique, but one of the easiest technique is chanting of Om. So that we begin at 5:30, and slowly toward the end of the period, the sound was electronically faded out so that you could hear this subtle vibration of Om coming from within. The vibration, what we hear, is the external vibration. But the secular vibration, every cell in the body, the most fundamental, most primary vibration is Om. As we progress further, we'll have pleasure of understanding as to what that Om is. And slowly, we'll have to remove the understanding that we know Om, we know how to chant it. Lot of people will tell us that U and Ma is Om, and will tell us has to begin at the belly or the belly button. U has to be chanted in the heart area, and Ma going beyond the throat pharynx and into the mind or into the brain, and that is how it needs to be chanted. That's what we may hear. Some people will say, make it a spot. So they will say, Om. Some people may use a different tune. Some people may use different musical instrument with it. And our ears may like to hear a certain tune, and we think we are meditating. But this is again a part of dharana. It is not meditation. It is not dhyana. The sound does not have to be external. And if it is external, which most of the time it is one of those 7 anga, saptanga, and it enters through one of those 19 mouths. But that is just the first part of Jagruta Sthiti. And that Jagruta Sthiti with which we are trying to understand the external world. And we know that external is not internal. And external is definitely not all pervading everywhere. And the external may be today, may not be tomorrow, and might not have been yesterday. We talk a lot about mindfulness. We talk about be in present. But for what? Mandukya holds our hand and guides us all the way. It guides us and holds us all the way. The only thing we are required to do is to silence the mind. Mind, the biggest filter. And by just meditating for a week or 10 days, may we know it's not gonna going to be enough. And sometimes even 5 minutes may be enough. Depends as to the quality of meditation. And our mind has been so much engaged into the world outside of us that vikshipta sthiti, vritti, wandering, rather than asking me or anybody else, what is that turiya state? You ask yourself, how steady is your mind and how long? Sometimes I would like to even mention that forget about even 5 seconds, not 5 minutes, I'm talking about 5 seconds. And you just take any object I'm saying, not even God's name or anything. And God's name may be an object too. Say you are thinking of Om, all right? And you chant Om 5 times. And every time you chant, examine your mind as to what else mind is thinking. Or what else did it think before or after. And you don't have to ask anybody, am I meditating properly? How would somebody else know what is the stage of your mind? So simply just ask yourself. And as a result, we have heard many times that the spirituality is a singular journey. And you yourself, the only single person, will come to know, come to realize that all other things, and I said things include being also, may sound nothing to you. Thereby, very important thing to be understood, that don't think that you will be renouncing the stage you are in. You will be doing exactly what you've been doing, but the awareness will be different. You will know that everything is being done. You are not doing it. Everything in the universe is happening. Nobody is doing it. Your life is being sustained. You are not sustaining it. You might have been a medical doctor and you may think certain proteins, certain carbohydrates, certain enzymes, and certain vitamins, certain salt sustains the life. But what is life? Contemplate, contemplate, and contemplate. So the third sloka, this sloka talks about, once again, Jagruta Sthiti. The doer is considered to be Vaisvanara. All those fancy names you don't have to remember, but try to remember this 5 cognitive senses and mind and intellect, mana and vijnana. Then this 19 mouths, And for each and every mouth, you have to keep on thinking and go to the subtler stage and understand that none of those 19, none of those 7 will lead you to a self-realized state. And at the same time, mind you, one who has realized will be using these 7 limbs and 19 mouths, but awareness will be different. Yoga is a science of awareness. And you may say, of course I'm aware, I'm alert, I'm in a Jagruta sthiti. But are you aware? That awareness is Prgna. And that is a byproduct of purest state of silence. We have heard many times that my silence is non-negotiable. Now you know why it is non-negotiable. Because we want to go beyond silence. We want to experience silence. And that silence, we all are silent. Silencer. I will not say silenter. We all are silence. Abstract state. And that silence is nothing but love. So at that time, we will not be seeking somebody to love us, because we realize that that silence is love. It's not lover. You don't need a light to bring the lumens or the light. You yourself are the light. That realization will make you further silent. And that silence is not to talk, but not having anything to talk. Who would you talk to? Because every one of us around us, they are using those 7 limbs and 19 mouths. They are chanting, and chanting is not bad, mind you. But let's try to go beyond. A lot of time we enjoy the festival, what we may call Ekadashi, and today is my fasting. And truly speaking, ask yourself, are you really fasting? And the fasting is not for punya or anything else, not an austerity. It is just to bring your awareness to a sharper stage, that your hunger, your mental hunger is dictating you. So your mind is the master. You are not the master. And if you cannot even ask your mind, you are not hungry. And that's it. So don't think that you are doing any punya also. By offering $5 or $500,000 to a charitable cause, don't think you are opening a door to heaven. First of all, money was not yours. And how you have earned $500,000, only you know it. And that donation is to loosen your bond with the money. Because we all the time think, my money. So far as anything is yours, mental thinking, we are still moving in these 7 limbs and 19 mouths. Let me take you to the introduction of the next look. Did we look at the translation? I don't recall, but let's look at it once more. The first quarter or the pada is Vaisvanara, whose sphere of activity is the waking stage, who is conscious of the external world of object, who has 7 limbs and 19 mouths, and who enjoys the gross object of the world. Understand, gross object. Going to the next city, next stage, Swapnasthano Prgnaanam Saptanga Ekonvinsati Mukha Pravivikta Bhuktejaso Dvitiya Pada. Right? Oops. As okay. Swapnasthana, one who has dream or dreaming state as one's field. What do you mean by the field? When whatever we are doing with our 7 limbs and 19 mouths, and we are aware of the external world, so this is what we call Jagruta Sthiti. But for Swapna, while we are dreaming, we are into another world. So whatever experience we get during Swapna Sthana only, dream stage only. Antaha Pragna, that is internal knowledge, who is conscious of internal what? Inside the dream region, understand? Don't think that we are aware of our internal. Saptanga, Sapta Anga, Ekon Vinsati Mukha, 19 mouths. Pravikta Bhuka, experience of subtle. Pravikta, subtle. Object. Taijasa, first was Vaisvanara stage, and this one is called Taijasa. Taijasa, the name is Taijasa, that's all. I cannot translate. Dvitiya, second. Padaha, quarter. Let's see what the translation says. The second quarter pada, Taijasa, whose sphere of activity is that limb state, who is conscious of the internal world of object, who has 7 limbs and 19 mouths, and who enjoys the subtle objects of the mental world. This is mental world, and the other one was grosser world, the physical world. Okay. The difference between Jagruta Sthiti and Swapna Sthiti. During Swapna Sthiti, the object appears real, but there is no object. And the object exists so far as the dream exists. Bear with me what I'm saying. So during the time of sleep, you may think that you are utilizing those 7 organs, 7 anga, limbs, and 19 mouths. Everything appears so real, but your stage of activity is different. You were performing some drama during Jagruta Sthiti on the stage of Jagruta Sthiti. Stage. Consider these as a platform. But when you want to perform the second drama, you're changing the state. And that is Taijasa. So first was Vaisvanara. You're using this, and those 7 limbs and 19 mouths were physical, were grosser. But in this, the 4th sloka, second pada, is talking about they are subtle, they are inner. The other one was for the external world. This is yours and yours only, internal world. You cannot ask somebody else, hey, what did I dream of? Other person doesn't know. Only you know. And to quite a degree, we are considering even the Swapna Sthiti is so real. And in that light, remember last time I mentioned a short story that the guy was dreaming that he won a lottery ticket, and the lottery administrator announced his name and says that, hey, Chandrasekhar won $10 million. Here is the lotto winner. And right at that time, Chandrasekhar's eye got open. So then he rushed to me and he said, Sonaji, give me a technique how to go back to the same dream. Why? Because he wants to get that $10 million, which is not there. Swapna Sthiti. And as we will progress further, we'll come to know that what we call to be Jagruta Sthiti is also a Swapna Sthiti. Swapna, dream. More and more as we progress further in the sloka, clarity will happen, or I would say clarity will be available. I won't say happen. And how far we want to stick to the dream state. And it is the dream state that makes us miserable. And even if Chandrasekhar would have won $10 million, and after some time I would have to ask him, what did you do with it? And then the chain of event of misery begins. And what happened? Person like Swamiji may not be even calling him once a week to say, how are you doing? I will be calling 10 times to find out, is he sparing any money to me? Or he may have hundreds of uninvited friends caring for the parties. Some insurance people will come and asking for the insurance. Some other investor will be coming saying that such and such place, the return on investment is so much, why don't you invest here? And then he is afraid of that someday somebody may shoot me because I have won $10 million. So then, previously he was even sleeping comfortably, now he can't because he has to think, oh my God, how would I ask Sanajit not to bother me? How would I ask my insurance agent I don't need any? How would I ask the other administrator, financial advisor, so-called? And other well-wisher may come and say, you're stupid. You're just wasting putting the $10 million in your bank. So whatever he was previously resting, now he becomes restless. So understand that the dream for which or behind which you were running, when that becomes, I am using the word reality now, but it's not in the contrast to what the reality we were talking about. So when that comes out to be true, and he won 10 million, do you know how miserable he will be? But then Chandrasekhar may say, Swamiji, miserable or not miserable, that I have to see. You don't worry. Let me have that 10 million. This is the attraction. This is the hold. These are the golden chains with which you are binding yourself. And all of you, whosoever are listening now, when they come to know that this is what is waiting for me, 10 million, then they will say, why don't you send me the lecture? I will listen. But let me get that 10 million. And try to study and taste your own mind. I remember a friend of mine has once told me that you being smart person, on one side, you meet God, and on the other side, you take important metal like gold or platinum or diamond, whatever you call it. And person says, of course I'm going to see God. Are you kidding me? And then the next statement of mine is that I have God's statue made up of wood, and I have a gold brick. You take the gold brick, you take the God statue, because that's what you asked for. You said you want God. Ask yourself, what would you take? Golden brick or God's statue? This shows our inner love existence. And this nobody else has to find out. Only you have to know that how real you are. How real you want to sit and meditate. I will keep on saying 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Ask yourself what really you want to do. All right, dear friend, we'll continue with this fourth pada next time. Let us end with Shantipat. Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.